Good morning, everybody. Do my usual check here. Make sure everyone can hear me. Make sure I can share my screen. After a long delay, we're finally back and hopefully back in the groove. You know, family comes first, and when you got so many other people involved in your life, you just got to walk away from things sometimes. So I appreciate everybody's patience and thank you for being here. Um, yeah. So yeah, episode 4, California. Um, Took me a long time to piece this one together. Probably got like 15 hours just in sorting through my archive just to get all this back together. Um, yeah, don't forget Sophie. She's right outside the door, so she'll probably join us here in a little bit. I thought about breaking this up into 2 parts, but decided against it. um, I just kind of want to make these a little bit shorter and more digestible for people. And, I'm only a month into this channel, so things are going to evolve and change depending, how everyone feels about things. And, um, yeah, just see where things go. So yeah, this should be pretty fun. I think I'm going to start out with just reading a little, Wikipedia background. Um, and then we'll jump into some of my archived images. Then we'll go through the um, all the posts I've had on Twitter over the years. I picked about, I don't know, 20 of my favorites, and I have like 200. So again, if you don't have Twitter, you can still find me on there and look at my posts without having an account. It's a lot easier on a computer, but you can do it on a phone. You can just search my name. I'll have the link in the description after the video's up. But yeah, so I'll share my screen here and we'll jump right into it because there's quite a lot to go over. Hope everyone's doing well. And again, apologize for the delay. Thanks for sticking with me. So yeah, I'm just gonna read a little here. I know Wikipedia can get a little old, but it's just kind of to get everyone in the right mindset as we keep going. California is a state in the western United States located along the Pacific coast with nearly 39 million residents across a total area of approximately 163,000 square miles. Okay. California is gigantic. My high school years, I had a friend that moved to the Bay Area and another one that moved to San Diego. So 3 or 4 times a summer, I would drive from Portland, Oregon, all the way along 101. 101 is the name of the highway that goes along the coast here. It's one of the most beautiful drives in the world. I haven't seen a whole lot of the world, but it's definitely one of the most beautiful in the United States. But yeah, so I've driven up and through the whole bay. I've driven all across California several times. It's huge. You can fit, as you can see in the image, quite a few states in it. And it's an incredible place. Just about every kind of, they have a tropical rainforest. They have, one of the hottest deserts in the world. It might be the hottest. I'm not sure. I've been in Death Valley several times, and the heat there is unlike anything you've ever experienced anywhere else. But yeah, it's gigantic. It blows your mind, really. You think about overpopulation, and it only takes, getting 1 or 2 hours out of whatever city you may live in to realize that there's plenty of room for everybody. Even in California, that's so densely populated, it doesn't take long before you're on a road where you don't see anybody for a very long time. It is the most populous U.S. state and the 3rd largest by area. It is also the most populated subnational entity in North America and the 34th most populous in the world. The economy of California basically carries a huge portion of the United States. Pretty amazing. When you think about some of the agricultural crops that come from California. There are several crops, that California grows 90% of for the U.S. It's pretty crazy. And as we get into this, we'll start talking about water and water rights and how that plays a big role in all of this. And that, before a cataclysm or whatever you want to call it, California has been populated several times by several different races. Long before the quote Aboriginal or the Indians, there were several different races here. And the mining that took place in California um, was quite substantial and revealed quite a lot of these secrets. And they worked very hard to kind of sweep it under the rug. If you guys remember, I try to kind of connect each state as we go through them. So we ended talking about the volcanic, um, um, the volcanic epoch, or there were several of them, but they weren't over millions of years. They happened in very short bursts. And there are portions of Oregon that were covered in 4, 5, 600 to 1,000 feet of lava. We're going to find similar things here in California. um, but yeah, so um, I'm sure everyone's familiar with California, so we're just going to hop off this, and we're gonna share some pictures. I have a pretty dense um, archive here with pretty amazing paintings. So just gonna kind of cover everything here. And so yeah, how can I make this a full? Let's do that. Is that gonna? Can you even see it better that way? No, that's not good. That's still small. Well, okay, that's a little bit better. So we're gonna go through some maps, and then we'll get into some pictures. It's just a little bit of everything, and I'm just going to kind of quickly scroll through these so everyone kind of gets a mindset of what things looked like. These first few are going to be aerial bird's eye views of different cities in California, and it'll kind of help you get in the mindset that I am in when I go through a lot of these posts that I've been making for 10 years now or so. What these cities look like, and they were amazingly beautiful. California had, you feel like you're in a Spanish mission. Obviously there's a lot of Spanish influence, but that came long before the Spaniards. But yeah, so here's Auburn, California. I'm gonna do my best to look at chat. And again, thank you everybody for being here. I really appreciate it. It was kind of frustrating for me. We had really good momentum with these to take such a long break, but appreciate everybody for making it, especially this early in the morning. I'm probably gonna do one more as a live. And then I'm going to be just recording and premiering these at a later time. There's only so long 5 a.m. is going to be sustainable for me. But yeah, so here we go. Auburn, Bakersfield. So maybe a little hard, but you can kind of get a feeling of the cities. Bakersfield had some incredible places. Let's see. Okay, it's working pretty okay there, but my face is in the way. It's okay quality. Okay, great. So you can get an idea here. Just incredible. Just like I showed you in Oregon and Washington. That's annoying. The construction was incredible. It really was. And like most cities that I'm going to be sharing with you, so the oil fields in Bakersfield were really big. If you've seen pictures of California, Santa Barbara, these oil towers were everywhere in California. It was pretty nuts. But I mean, this is Bakersfield, and in the 1800s, this was absolutely, just this ridiculously tiny town, and all these ancient, beautiful stone buildings. Where you're walking into the second story. You're never walking in at base level. There's at least one, if not two, floors buried, and they're just really beautiful buildings that, for the most part, are all gone. Just like we covered with Oregon, which is kind of unknown for a lot of people. But Portland was incredible, had a lot of beautiful buildings. But yeah, here's Eureka. Just again, we're going to go through these pretty quickly. just to give you an idea what the construction looked like. These are all 1870s to early 1900s. Fresno, beautiful courthouse. Schools, you'll find this narrative with everyone. The schoolhouses are insane. Like Portland had the most, and it's still around today. Probably one of the most beautiful ancient buildings left in Portland is a school. Doesn't make any sense. High school, just incredible. Fresno. I love this one. This is LA. See how, if you've been to LA, it's pretty incredible what it's turned into from where it came from. But as we get into these articles, you're going to realize that even the oldest, most beautiful building that we don't seem to have any explanation for, or it doesn't really make sense that these buildings are being built in the time frame they are with horse and buggy, we're going to find that lying below these cities is a hell of a lot more than we've been told. This is Los Angeles here, and this is 20 years after the one I just previously showed you. I just love the courthouse. This is a beautiful building. Red brick, a lot of red brick in LA. The most of any city in California. Another one from LA. This one's a few years prior to the one I just showed you. And it gets kind of interesting too, and I'm not going to go into it too much, but you'll see that all these buildings change a little bit. We'll show some more here as we go. Oakland. Hall of Records. St. Francis. Courthouse. School. City Hall. And maybe someday I'll do an episode on curriculum, and we'll just talk about how the curriculum has changed, because that's a big one. By about 1915, 1920, the curriculum had been set for the entire nation. Here's a flood, Sacramento, 1850. Sacramento is an amazing place. One of the last times I drove through Sacramento was during flood season. And it was one of the worst floods in 15 years or so. And it looked similar to this. There weren't buildings underground. They have a bunch of levees now. But the water went on and on and on. And the highway is built up on pylons. So you drive for, 20 miles on pylons over this gigantic floodplain. And you're like, why would you even build a city? It's like so many narratives with the damming and the dikes and the levees. Irrigation and water control play a big part in a lot of things. And when you dig into it deep enough, it gets pretty nefarious. It's unfortunate. Sacramento. Really beautiful. Oh, sorry about that. Just love these old buildings. State Capitol. A lot of weird stuff going on with this building. Like a lot of them. So I'm just breezing through this. This is one of my favorite pictures of San Francisco. And I found this one a really long time ago. But one of the most important things to notice here is you have the very much castle-like features with the obvious embankment walls that were taken down that are much older. You can find really good images where these walls are still around, and I'll share some of those as we go. I found some of the oldest pictures I could find, actual pictures, photographs of San Francisco, and it does a pretty good job of showing the really old stonework. But these buttresses, the castle-like features here. San Francisco had a lot of this, and the several floods and fires led to the complete removal of all of this. But yeah, California's an incredible place. And just to think that, a lot of the narratives we talk about with the Tartary stuff and, what happened in the 1800s. And, well, it's going to get really interesting when they start talking about what they're finding buried 100 feet below these cities. San Francisco again. Just cities of industry. San Jose. And again, if you want to look at all this on your own time frame, I have an entire thread that we'll go through a little bit of, and you can look at all of it in detail and read the articles at your leisure and so forth. And again, you don't need an account, so I'll post the link to the thread in the description, and you can take your own time. But for the sake of getting through all of this, I have a lot of pictures I really want to show, got a lot of amazing paintings. Something that I haven't been touching on too much that I really want to. Just amazing, Look at this, This is Stockton. Like, one of my friends lived here. Tiny town, still tiny. I mean, a building like this makes no sense in this tiny little town. It's one of the biggest buildings in California by square footage at the time, and Stockton was just absolutely minuscule. Similar to the capital of Oregon. Salem has a building that up until recently was the largest square footage building in the state, and it was one of the first buildings built in the state. So these are going to be harder to see, but the exposition postcards, low res, of course. I'll just try to go through these fast so we can get to the higher res stuff. This is the Panama Exposition, 1914. I just love this one. Got the pyramid in the background, which is actually there in an ostrich farm. Just imagine going to these in the 1914. And California is a place that's rich in actual pyramids. We'll get into some of that as we go along. I just love, I love baseball. My kids play baseball. California League, one of the first baseball leagues. Here's some old pictures of San Francisco. Sorry for the resolution, but they're very old. One thing to note is before the large fire, everything was stone. Everything. Something to remember. The walls, the sidewalks, everything was stone. Stone and brick. A really important picture here. They're digging out. You can see the wall here. Hopefully everyone can see this okay. This is a wall, like those walls I was showing earlier. And it's mud covers the entire. So they're digging this out to build a large home like this one here. And inside this older wall is mud all the way up to the top of the wall. 8 feet, I'd say, maybe more. So you find a lot of this. The Seattle video, if you haven't seen it, go back and watch Washington. But they dug out 50 million, I believe, cubic yards of earth they removed in Seattle to build the city. 50 million cubic yards. It may have been 500. I think it was 50 million though. But this right here needs a little explanation, because you look at the Seattle one and you see they were digging out 5, 6, 7 stories worth of mud and finding all kinds of stuff. It wasn't just mud with nothing in it. They were finding Indians, they were finding mounds, all kinds of stuff. Some hydraulic mining here. Really important, because we're going to cover this more as we go along in this episode. Just look at this. This is so in Washington, they did the same thing, but they didn't say they were mining. They were just clearing the city out to have a level ground to build the city, which is a bunch of nonsense. And the photos there were pretty incredible. But you can see we're probably 5, 6, 7, 8 stories down in the earth. So, what happened? Love this. Samuel is the name of this church. It was bought by the Rothschilds. It ran on natural gas. It was incredible. It was heated by geothermal, and the lights were run on natural gas. Um, Incredible. Purchased by the Rothschilds, burned to the ground. Go figure. Just a beautiful, beautiful church. Unbelievable church. So here you can see, and this is the entire city, you guys. These walls extend, especially up on the higher hills. These walls extend all the way around to make level ground for the homes, but they're everywhere. It's all stone and brickwork. You see a lot of later drawings and art of San Francisco, and it's just a bunch of wood shacks. That was after the original Stone City was destroyed. So again, I apologize but these are very, very old images. These are the oldest pictures I could find. Again, buried sublevels to everything, taking stairs down to the first floor. Doesn't make any sense from a construction standpoint, a buried level here, and then this is all debris they're clearing out. You find this a lot in San Francisco. I believe this is Pasadena. Pasadena is one of the most amazing ancient cities in California. Just one of the most beautiful places I've ever seen in the 1800s, at least in America. This is Pasadena here. Just an incredible place. Some of the most wealthy men in America had homes here. They called it, the Eden of the West. Just some logging pictures. Incredible. California State Normal School, San Jose. Again, San Jose, very, 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 very small town in the 1860s, 1850s. But, no problem building this. Horse racing. This man set a record. They would race from city to city, and they had these timed events. And, yeah, pretty cool. I just love I just thought it was a beautiful piece. State of California steamship. Yosemite Valley. Mammoth trees in California. Just love them. Just look at these things. Crazy. As we get into some of these, we'll get into Calaveras County, and I'll dive a little bit deeper into Calaveras County. The Baldwin Hotel, San Francisco. Just a monster. The whole bottom level was like 25-foot ceilings. Pretty crazy. North Beach. One of the older drawings of San Francisco. Bridal Veil. So if you look here, the original spelling for Yosemite was Yosemite. Really important to note. One of the Aboriginal, in this closer to our time frame cultures, Yosemite to them meant the big bear, and it was it was related to the swastika and the movement of the Big Dipper, and that was their name for the big bear. So this valley was like an as above, so below for them, and the movement of the pole star or the Big Dipper around the pole star, the whirlpool, as they said. California scenery, Seal Rocks. This one was really popular. Everyone loved this one. On the coast of California. It's Southern California. It doesn't specify exactly where, but the mountain in the background is quite pyramidal. It's a beautiful picture. Yosemite again. Yosemite. The same man set in a different time. So yeah. Silver Creek, Yosemite Falls. This is a fabulous old world, about the oldest drawing I could find of Los Angeles. I believe it was like 1840. Might have been even earlier than that. Yeah, might have been even earlier. But you can see the ancient stone walls here. The city was much, much older. And they had so much snow recently, the peaks, the view can look very similar. These mountains often don't have snow in them. But I mean, just look at this, they attribute it to the Spanish, but it's much, much older than the Spanish. California was debated in the 1800s as being the Ophir of Solomon, and that this was the original ancient land. And when you look at enough old pictures of California as an island, and the land between California and the mainland was called the Red Sea. The Baja Sea still can be called that on more commonly closer to our time frame maps, but yeah. So perhaps the biblical Red Sea was just here between California and yeah, you know, um, we'll talk a little bit later about Amadeus of Gaul and his description of paradise at the right hand of the Indies. And if you go back in old enough maps, the Americas were called India Superior. So California would be the right hand of India and would be that paradise from the story of Amadeus of Gaul, which we'll talk a little bit about as we get farther in here. I'll just speed this up a little bit. Again, these are on the my California thread you can find on my Twitter page. Largest tree in the world here, but you can see a stump clearly larger right next to it. But amazing feature of this section of forest is that about 40 years later, they would find a giant cave system under this forest of crystal. And I've attributed and talked about many times before that the the trees are, connected to the crystal systems below, kind of crystalline in themselves, an antenna for the quartz. Semi Valley here, Three Brothers, Calaveras. So this place is incredible. The oldest human skull ever found in America was found while digging a 120-foot coal mine shaft in this area. Pretty amazing place. Very, very ancient. I mean, these trees are how old? Thousands of years old. I wouldn't say that. I think they're from a time when the weather was a little bit different than what we're told, and they grew quite a bit faster. If you study tree growth rings, you'll find that they're more set on a realistic time frame the more northern latitudes you go. But if you get closer to the equator, you can't trust tree rings. They grow rings much, much quicker. In fact, a tree on the equator can grow a ring, I believe, every 2 or 3 months, perhaps even faster. So I think our ability to measure time frames is a little skewed. But imagine, this giant forest, and then 120 feet below this, buried, they find a human skull. And we're going to find a lot more stuff as we get into the articles. So I'll speed this up a little bit. Post office, San Francisco. It's just hard to fathom. Horse and buggy building something so magnificent. Some dam work. Golden Gate before the bridge was built. This is Alcatraz with the Star Fort that's still there. It's hard to see. I apologize, but you can find a lot of older pictures of it before the Golden Gate Bridge was built. Pasadena again, Mangrove Street, incredible ancient place. The orange trees here were some of the oldest in the United States. Pretty close to the oldest in Florida. Definitely can't attribute that to the Spanish. Time frames don't add up. Unfortunately, I can't remember which that one was. We're back to Pasadena again. Cactus Tree, Southern California. Orange Grove Avenue, Pasadena. This is San Francisco, and this is Berkeley, I believe. Correct me if I'm wrong, but I'm pretty certain. But just look at these buildings, They're buried. You're taking giant staircases up to the second, in some cases, third story. Buried, This is Oakland, This is Stanford University, the gate to Stanford. Sandy dirt road, but the school is incredible, and the stone shows a lot of age. Stanford again. This is a special, very special rose that supposedly came from the Middle East, but I would beg to differ that it probably came from here and went to the Middle East. I believe it was called the Ophir, the rose tree of Ophir. California Baseball League grounds, panorama of San Francisco. That's post one of the fires. Interior of one of the Palace Hotel. Pretty cool. I like this. Open air. Just ride your horse inside. I thought that was pretty cool. Just a magnificent tree, Santa Cruz. This is called the Cliff House. Why would you do that? Just crazy. This is the California steamship. It made course between San Francisco and Peking, China. That was its main route back and forth. I just love this beautiful painting. Del Coronado. Again, the history here is really interesting with this hotel. Midwinter exposition. So we're going to get into some exhibition stuff here again. Coronado. Mining. We're going to talk about this. This town is incredibly important. Cherokee, California. Remember that? Just look at this. So they've hydraulically mined this entire mountain. And these little mounds are all that's left. That's the debris that's too big to wash down the streams. San Diego exposition. More hydraulic mining. They washed away millions, even more than in Seattle. We're talking like 200 million cubic yards of earth with hydraulic mining. It got banned in California because they were destroying farmland. And it took about 30 years for them to come up with some policies to get it back going. But in that short window, I believe they banned hydraulic mining in the late 1880s, sorry. And they were doing it from, the mid 1840s. And they estimated that they had uncovered, $10 billion in gold in that time frame, in the 1800s. Think about how much that is. And we're going to kind of dive into what they're really doing with hydraulic mining, a little bit better explanation of it. San Francisco exhibition. I already showed that image. This is Table Mountain. Remember that name? Table Mountain. This is in that Cherokee town. It's under a different name now, but you can see the cutaway here and why it's called Table Mountain. We'll cover why that's important. Hydraulic mining. I just love this. An actual photograph. I'm sure a lot of you have seen a lot of this, so I'm just kind of speeding up here. This is Cherokee, that town I was telling you about, where they literally washed away an entire mountain. And we'll get into why this is such an amazing place. I think I'm probably just going to call it there. Yep. And with a quote that's not relevant. And I think now we'll just get right into the articles. That's where the real juice is, at least the stuff that I love. And I'm sure that's what a lot of you are looking forward to. I'm doing a bad job of looking at chat like I always do. So again, everybody that's here, all 85 of you, I appreciate it so much. Thanks for joining me so early in the morning. That doesn't need to be that big. All right, here we go. Here's what I showed you earlier. Some of my favorite images, some overhead views. So this gives you an idea of how I organize things. So it's easy for people to go back after the episode and everything's in a thread format. And you can just see it all for yourself. And, but yeah, so we're just going to jump into the articles and go one by one. Ancient California, Connecticut, 1874. Some of the cities of modern California are on the very sites where ancient races had their dwelling places and their burial mounds. The skeletons of an unknown race have been found in San Francisco sandhills, and workmen engaged in cutting down a street crossing at Napa recently unearthed the remains of nearly 100 persons. The skeletons had been partially burned before internment. Mortars, arrows, heads, knives made of obsidian, and a shell car drop were discovered. So I like to make AI images with I just copy paste text from the article and see what the computer generates for me. And you know, half the time you have to manipulate it a little bit more, but I just love the images. So going back through these has been a lot of fun. From this, the conclusion must be drawn that the remainder of America is not also of venerable antiquity, because it reverses the truth. Still, California, from her mountain peaks, has patiently seen, with ever watchful eye, the land to the east of her gradually rise. They're talking about the Rocky Mountains, right? Through a lot of crazy cataclysmic events, the Rocky Mountains, as a lot of people have stated, a lot of Aboriginal cultures in that area said that the mountains appeared overnight her in a few days, shaking the salt sea from her back, while the west and the north. Because I mean, if there's just so many drawings of California as an island, it's hard to believe that's not a partial reality. And what kind of event would it take to fill in the Red Sea? You think of the story of crossing the Red Sea and all of that. The stories of Solomon. We'll get into Queen Calafia, Queen of Sheba. A lot of these stories, the possibility of them taking place here. It's pretty interesting. While the West and the South volcanic action has shaken the earth into fragments until it has become a prey to the devouring water, leaving the present state as the only monument is the part of the country to testify to the ancient grandeur of the land and the high civilization to which it gave birth. Beneath the soil of California is hidden wealth, much greater indeed than any of her rich mines have ever yet produced, while beneath the foundations of her cities, more especially of San Francisco, Los Angeles, and San Diego, lie buried the remains of mighty cities. It would not be wise, even if you knew the exact location of this deeply hidden treasure, to point out its probable locality. Excuse me. Such is the natural cupidity of mankind that only strife and possibly bloodshed could fall the public possession of such knowledge, especially at the stage of our evolution, when selfishness and greed are too often the main springs of human action. So yeah, I just love that. This is a longer thread here that belongs to a subject matter dealing with King Solomon in California. The correlations between Queen of Sheba, Queen Calafia, the story of the Amazons, Lemuria, so on and so forth. But we're going to stick to just the California stuff here for the sake of this presentation. So yeah, you can see this thread is quite long. Excuse me. Ancient pyramid in California. Another of those numerous evidences of a civilized antiquity in the New World has just turned up. It seems in the shape of a great stone pyramid, composed of courses from 18 inches to nearly 3 feet in thickness and 5 to 8 feet in length. It has a level of a top of more than 50 feet squared, though it is said to be evident from the remains that it was once completed. Just like the Pyramid of Giza, something was taken from the top, the Ben stone. I've talked quite a lot about that stone, the lodestone, what it symbolized, that stones were worshipped, that the stones spoke, that they were the voice of God. Prior to the so-called analog eye or analog self, there was an auditory hallucination, and the voice of God, and that schizophrenia is a remnant of this previous civilization where men were like worker bees and they heard their auditory hallucination or commands from the hive mind. And that perhaps a transitory state or period of time when the voice of God had dissolved or had lessened, these stones spoke and were conscious and were worshipped. Stone worship is still prominent today. But yeah, so this is a pyramid that's no longer around, and we'll get into quite a few more. Buried city under Berkeley, California University is said to occupy site of town of Stone Age. So I showed you that old picture, right, of Berkeley, um, that bird's eye view from the 1890s, where you got these little wooden homes and then these giant stone buildings standing out, in prominence that are obviously buried. Well, farther down the road, that campus is expanded, but yeah. Buried a few feet under the campus of the University of California lies the city of the Stone Age, whose massive walls respond to the instruments of the members of Berkeley Society for Psychical Research and show their well-defined locations according to the investigations made by Professor Joseph Vero, president of the local psychiatric society, and other members. So I had a follower on Twitter, reach out to me who went to this school, and older gentleman, and he said that you could go 3-4 stories below in some of the older buildings, and it wasn't a big deal. Obviously, it's all blocked off now. Not necessarily blocked off, but for employees only, or however you want to look at it. But I chased enough of these sources down, and they ended up digging a lot and finding quite a bit of stuff. But it was all pretty much, private property kept under lock and key. The series of investigations to find the lines of the buried city, which antedates by thousands of years the time of Columbus, it is said have been carried on quietly for the last few months since the society took up the branch of its studies. This article is from 1908. And those pictures I was showing you of Berkeley that look quite fantastic were, were from the 1890s. So you can only imagine. And I think, um, you know, reading enough of these articles now, here in Oregon, but beneath the campuses of the um, University of Oregon and um, I'm spacing the name of the other one, but the two oldest ones here, they same thing. They found ancient walls. They found an Indian mound in Eugene next to the University of Oregon. More than one, several actually. This article coming up is one of my favorites. Okay. Nevada petrifactions and fossils, Nevada, 1869. California, huge petrified skeletons of men, yet huge animals on which they used to ride, judging by the saddles as big as dump carts, still strapped to their backs. One body is 100 feet long, petrified into quartz and silver ore. Stellium, hopefully, if Stellium's still in the chat, I read this one with him before. Oh, there's 101 of you here. Fantastic number. Welcome to the portal. But yeah, I've read this one before with Stellium. It's one of my favorites. So what this is going to tie into the hydraulic mining, and we'll transition a little bit into the mining stuff a little deeper as we go through this article, just to give you an idea of what they were finding. Okay, remember that I showed you some of those pictures. They're washing away millions and millions and millions of cubic feet of earth going down. So in some places, 10 or more stories more. In some places, they go 200, 300 feet. So they're washing away whole mountainsides. And here's a little taste of what they were finding buried underneath all this mud and lava flow. Sometimes it's lava flow, sometimes it's mud, sometimes it's gravel. It's a mix of everything. Nevada petrifactions and fossils. It is not a little whimsical to notice that since the little 10-foot stone man was dug up at Cardiff, which is creating such a sensation among the New York Yankees, there are plenty more suddenly resurrected down in Arizona and in various other parts of the country, compared with which the Cardiff giant is a mere Tom Thumb. Over in Calaveras, it's an important thing to remember. That was that picture I showed you. One of the most beautiful ancient forests that ever existed in America was in Calaveras County. Over in 100 feet in a mine shaft at 100, and I think it might have been 120, 130 feet, they found a skeleton of a man. Very unusual skeleton. considered to be the oldest ever found in America. Over in Calaveras County, huge petrified skeletons of men are said to be quite common. Also, the bones of yet huger animals on which they used to ride, judging from the saddles, as large as dump carts, found still strapped on their backs. We helped to dig up a thigh bone ourselves over there, 15 feet long, which doubtless belonged to some antediluvian chief. Some called it an auld log, but it was the shape of a thigh bone anyhow, and badly petrified. We have never known many complete stone giants to be exhumed in this vicinity, but out in Humboldt country, one large body, over 100 feet long, known as the Little Giant, has been found, completely petrified into quartz and silver ore. Really, really incredible part to take note of there. Petrified into quartz and silver ore. Now, if you're familiar with Stellium 7, and he's responding, so that's perfect. I'm glad he's still here. If you're not familiar with it, check out his YouTube channel. Really, really important work. A very, very powerful correlation there. This connects a lot of the ancient tree and petrified titan work, and to have an article where they're talking about finding a completely petrified giant that's 100 feet long that's been turned into quartz and silver ore. You find that a lot of gold ore and gold follows these quartz lines, and it's you know um, Stellium has done a great job exploring these subjects, and I very much am in agreement with him. This concept of biogeology and what happened, some kind of cataclysmic event that um, could petrify, the Medusa event that could petrify humans, um, and that all these different biological components of the human body, when exposed to high voltages, turn into different materials: quartz, silver, gold, so on and so forth. So yeah, well, just an incredible article. There's a second part here. It is well known to us that petrified horses are plenty in Comstock Ledge, some of them over 50 feet high. Also, huge spurs on which but monstrous men could appropriately wear. Petrified. Wild cats are still found throughout the mining region. It is well known to us all the petrified horses are plenty in Comstock Ledge, some of them over 50 feet high. Just think about that, you guys. And I've found dozens and dozens of skeletons of giant horses found all over America. The Dakotas, Montana, there are countless giant horses, huge, even bigger than these. So just, while I'm reading these, just kind of, close your eyes and just picture what this place was like, 100, 50 to 100 foot tall men riding giant horses, you know, it's just incredible, and how many layers down is this? How many different civilizations have come and gone since this time? It's hard to say for sure, but we'll get into a few more of these articles that show how deep they're going and what they keep finding. And also numerous huge spurs, which none but monstrous men could appropriately wear. No human bones, except bones of contention, have yet been found in the Comstock, but some of these are of great size, especially those found a few years ago. Petrified wild cats are still found throughout the mining region. We have plenty of big feeling men among us, none of extraordinary size to petrify, although many of them are already old fossils. So that just goes on to talk about the deniers of such things that are found. But since I don't do a good enough job of looking at chat, I'm gonna just kind of pop over here and see what people are saying. See what Stellium was saying. Yeah, he was talking about the size. Yep, the great trees. Thank you, Hippie, for posting that. It appears that the corpse of engineers like the flood ancient sizes to make lakes. Yeah, trauma junkie. The damming and of California is extensive. They have more dams than anywhere in America, and it was definitely to cover up a lot of places. The control of water is very important, especially when it comes to burying history. No doubt they called him metal veins. Well, yeah, the terminology in mining is obviously very biogeological, 100%. They're just taking mining titans, essentially, as Stellium said countless times. Brett, thanks again. So sweet. Yeah, Hangman, 1128. Another great channel. Um, and I don't necessarily agree with everything he says, but his ancient petrified trees work is probably the best there is on YouTube. So check out Hangman 1128 as well. Hangman's channel is amazing. It changed 100%. Um, yeah. Um, my Several of my chats with Stellium, we get into the movie Avatar. I plan someday to do like a good breakdown of the movie, but I'm sure plenty of you are familiar, and I would say that's very accurate. What are the evil humans are coming to this planet to mine. Um, I'm spacing the name of it. That metal they need, and it lies in the crystal formation buried beneath the giant tree. And I've hypothesized, just like when you think of the rainforest, that 80% to 90% of all living life in the rainforest live in or on or around the tree. So you can imagine, close your eyes and imagine with me, a time period when the trees reached to the clouds and a canopy, just like in a rainforest, a vapor canopy existed. They create their own weather systems in these giant forests, and you have a canopy of these giant trees spaced far enough apart where their limbs are growing and covering everything, and you don't even see the sky. And you make your home in the trees, and the whole populace lives in the trees. And you know, one of the things I remember in Avatar is they're flying on the flying things, and the griffins, um and they're connecting their hair into the fibers of the trees. That was kind of that's more of a reality. The Lord of the Rings and the Avatars and these incredibly successful, kind of sci-fi. They're tapping into our unconscious. That's what makes them so successful. And I think those things are far more likely to be our true past than a lot of these other things that people are talking about. Prehistoric city discovered in the desert, Oregon, 1909. The edge of Coachella Valley, California. Most important archaeological discovery. Ruins of prehistoric city containing 700 to 1,000 well-preserved stone houses. Well, excuse me. Whole family's been battling cold. It's been a horribly long winter here. Snow and all the way until March, almost April, is unheard of. I'm sure everyone's been having a long winter as well. It's been a hard one for the U.S. So I apologize for my coughing. Where was I? Well paved streets, strange earthenware. Los Angeles, California, March 16th. In the San Joaquino Mountains near the edge of Coachella Valley, BP Bond of Long Beach has just made California's most important archaeological discovery, and one that will be of worldwide interest. While rambling up his while rambling up from his desert land claim, he found the ruins of a prehistoric city containing 700 to 1,000 well-preserved stone houses. Evidences of well-paved streets, strange earthenware of fine type scattered about, and the general aspect of the place shows that it was no mean community, but savored of civilization. Bond arrived here today, and after conferring with Charles F. Lumens and other scientists, arranged to place accurate information concerning this remarkable find before the Smithsonian Institute. He already had assurance by wire that an immediate and thorough investigation will be conducted from Washington, and has been asked, in the meantime, not to divulge the exact location of the ruins, lest relic hunters and others, who's the most fraudulent and guilty relic hunters? The Smithsonian, without a doubt. And you have to remember, in this time period, you guys, um, not only would they pay you, um, you get your land claims taken. So, it's you better fess up. And, if the money wasn't enough for you to tell everybody what was going on, well, then they just come steal your land. So, it was incredibly hard. Um, thank goodness through the delay of, getting these people from Washington, you can imagine what kind of that journey would take, a week or longer. And the communication between him and the people in the city, and the city with Washington, that could take time. So because of that, we have the blessing of these articles. Those time frames don't exist today. The Smithsonian can be on the ground, but the Smithsonian's in every country, everywhere. They go. These three-letter agencies exist everywhere. Um, and I'm sure there's some good and some bad there, and they definitely do a lot of preserving. But in the 1800s, let me tell you what they weren't doing. They weren't the preserving they were doing wasn't for the public viewing. So he was asked not to divulge the exact location of the ruins, lest relic hunters and others strip them of probable valuables. Yeah, because the Smithsonian's going to come and take everything away, and you're never going to see it. And I have several articles I've covered before, and if you haven't seen my series with Karimo, um, he's working on part 8 right now, and video 7 I'll be posting sometime this week. We cover a lot of this. He has several of my articles that he covers where I clearly show, and the author clearly shows that the Smithsonian not only was doing things illegally, but the governor of Colorado flat out said that he can do nothing. He's powerless, and they're stealing everything. They're tearing down buildings, and they're shipping things to the east, to Europe. I think they're reconstructing a false history in other places. That's what it seems like to me. It's been proven that the mummies that have ended up in Egypt have come from the Americas. There's been a lot of um, odd conjunctions there. And to have articles in the 1800s suggesting that that's exactly what they were doing. He states the Silent City lies within 15 miles of Indio and not over 5 miles from the old Los Angeles Yuma Road. Mummy of a Giant, California, 1985. The body was found in a cave by prospectors, an excellent state of preservation, over 9 feet high. Over the head, a leather hood used for burial, a shroud. So again, I typed just a few words from the article into the AI, and here's what it made. I just love it, brings a new dimension to it. But here's the drawing they had in the paper. Mummy of a giant, body of a man 9 feet high, dug up in California, biggest human being on record, though somewhat shrunk since he was alive. The corpse of the biggest man that ever lived has been dug up near San Diego. At all events, there is no satisfactory record in ancient or modern history of any human being nearly so tall. So you saw that in Calaveras County and on the Comstock in the hydraulic mining they were doing, they found the giants that were, 20, 30, 40, 50 plus feet tall, and horses that were over 50 feet tall. So as you get closer to the surface level, we get smaller and smaller and smaller. I'm sure that's not too hard to imagine if we can talk openly about titans. And if again you're not familiar with Stellium's work, check it out. If we're dealing with titan elephants, that are miles and miles long, it's not too hard to wrap your mind around. But again, you have to really take in a lot of information from a lot of different sources to start to build your own image of things. Again, I'm not trying to convince anyone of anything. I'm just, kind of giving you the history through my lens and using papers to help with that. The mummy, for in such a condition the remains were found, is that of a person who must have been about 9 feet high in life. This makes allowances for shrinkage, which may be pretty closely calculated. The cadaver has been carefully inspected and measured by Professor Thomas Wilson, curator of the Department of Prehistoric Anthropology at the Smithsonian Institute. The tape line even now registers the length from heel to the top of the head at 8 feet 4 inches. The mummy is that of an Indian and is almost certainly prehistoric, though its age cannot be determined with any sort of accuracy. Historical records of the part of California where it was found go back for at least 250 years, and they make no mention of any man of gigantic stature. How much older the body may be must must be left open to conjecture. Its preservation is no matter for surprise. In the arid region, the atmospheric conditions are such that a corpse buried in the dry season might very well become perfectly desiccated before the arrival of the rains, and thus be rendered permanently proof against decay. The body was found in a cave by a party of prospectors. It is in an excellent state of preservation. The spine has shrunk considerably, being thus reduced in length by reason of the drying of the cartilage between the vertebrae. The knees are somewhat bent. Over the head are the remnants of a leather hood, which seems to be have been part of a garment used for the purpose of a shroud. The man was well advanced in years, as shown by the condition of his teeth. La Brea Tar Pits, California, 1914. Now, this is one here that I might do a larger thread on later because I have probably 20 or more articles on La Brea, and I'm sure some of you are familiar with the story of La Brea, but it's quite amazing. Um, the things they were getting out of this tar pit were absolutely mind blowing, and you hear very little about the really, really good ones. The skeleton of a prehistoric pygmy, 3 feet high, 200,000 years old, next to the trunk. Again, I don't agree with these dates, but we'll just go with them because that's what they're saying. Next to the trunk of a tree, still erect, covered by 20 feet of asphalt. Okay, so picture that. You got a tree standing erect, still in place, 20 feet of asphalt above it, and a pygmy found next to this tree. So yeah, AI, it doesn't make, there's a lot of weird stuff going on here. So again, it's this AI generated, and I like them, but there's a lot of weirdness. The AI doesn't make the most polished looking humans. They're obviously kind of strange looking, but now on way to Smithsonian Institute for examination by scholars. Okay, pretty common, huh? The skeleton of what appears to have been a prehistoric pygmy, less than 3 feet in height, is on its way today from the asphalt bed of La Brea to the Smithsonian Institution in Washington. Now, I've been to the museum down here. I've been to the La Brea tar pits several times. All the things on display are just kind of that silly, fanciful stuff that we hear about, like the really interesting stuff. They found 9 foot tall people, they found pygmies, they found all kinds of crazy things. They found birds with 40-foot wingspans, um, giant birds, like an ostrich, but they were 25 feet tall. Lots of really crazy stuff. Thousands and thousands of skeletons came out of this pit. So again, I ask you, what happened? Some amazing event and volcanic, I would say, to conceal these animals in this liquid to preserve them the way they were. Something pretty devastating. If the genuineness of the find is verified there, the La Brea skeleton will take its place in the history of anthropology as the first remains of antediluvian man found on the North American continent. To my mind, said Director Frank Daggett of the Museum of History, Science, and Art, under whose direction the excavations have been carried on, there can be no doubt that these bones are those of a man. To what geological period he belonged must be a matter of conjecture now. Only careful researchers yet to be made can determine the truth. Indications are that the skeleton belongs to the Pleistocene period, roughly placed at 200,000 years old. First was found the skull last Friday, and since then the remainder of the bones, said to be in excellent state of preservation, have been scraped from their casing of asphalt with the most minute and painstaking care. Nearby was the trunk, still erect, of a tree, the summit of which overlaid by 20 feet of asphalt. Close to the tree trunk were the bones of a mammoth bear, of a species already classified as belonging to the Pleistocene period. Scientists of the University of California have contended that North America and Asia were at one time joined, and that geologically speaking, the backbone of the continent is the Aleutian Islands. Across the neck of the land, they believed came the Iphios, the little two-toed progenitor of the domestic horse. The find at La Brea, if it proves what it seems, will strengthen their contention that there was once an interchange of life between the two continents. Now, again, I haven't covered these in this series before, but I have pygmies with pygmy horses, pygmy skeletons, Tennessee, Arkansas, all along the Mississippi. They find dwarfs, pygmies. Now they classify them differently. So, this is kind of the Lord of the Rings thing again. And so yeah, miniature horses, miniature people, pygmy horses, pygmy people. We're finding giant, 50 foot, 100 foot long, 100 foot tall men, horses, and everything in between. What was America really like a few hundred years ago, 1,000 years ago? Seems like it was quite a magical place. So this is an old map from the 1500s. I know it's probably going to be kind of hard to see. The quality isn't the best here, but if you look here, this is the Great Lakes, but the Great Lakes don't really exist. So the Great Lakes would be like right here, and it's hard to see. But you have Shilaga, okay, Newfoundland's here, Bacchus, the land of Bacchus as it's called, okay. Canada is the desert, Canada, the desert. Here you have the pygmies. I know it's hard to see. Here you have Katai. So Chicago was called the Great White City. Peking was called the Great White City. I've hypothesized several times in the past that the land of Katai, the land of Prester John, Prester Khan, the Red King, the Great King, the Priest King, was was America, and that Katai, the capital of which was Chicago, the White City, the Great White City, which is now on the Great Lakes, which didn't exist in a previous age. It was also when you read the stories of Kublai, that outside of his dominion was the land of goblins and pygmies and dwarfs and giants, beast, dog-headed men. So in between here, you'd have Montana, and in the mountains of Montana, they found dog-headed men. Tengut, down here by California, kind of, I would say that's maybe Mexico-ish. So I just love this map. That article kind of correlates what we've been talking about, and they've been finding pygmies all over America for a very long time. But yeah, so how many more do we have? A lot more. So we're getting short on time. So I'm just going to bust through these and try to look at chat a little bit. Dino skeletons go for millions of dollars, millions of years. I'm not sure what he means. America, the land of Oz. Yep, absolutely. The Emerald City. Yep, definitely. We are in Machine City now. Lord of the Rings all around. Absolutely. I talk about this a lot with Dr. Longo. It's been something I've been talking about for probably 5 years, maybe more. Yeah, Great Lakes kind of just popped up. Yeah. Um, there's a lot of hypothesizing the Great Lakes are part of a giant mining operation. And when you look at the copper mines there and how ancient those are, and you know that everything is the deeper you go, the more ancient it gets, it's not hard to hypothesize. I'm finding out stuff about Florida that I never knew before growing up here. Notice North America says Asia. Yeah, exactly. Asia superior. India superior is America. North America. India superior. Absolutely. Yeah, the lands of Ophir, Amadeus. That California lies at the right hand, or Paradise lies at the right hand of India. Mined by Titans. Okay, we're gonna keep going. One of the most remarkable monuments in America is in San Luis Obispo County, Southern California. A great rock rises 150 feet above the plain of Carissa, and in the distance looks rugged and forbidding. On near approach, it is seen to have on its eastern side an opening 25 feet broad, which leads into an inner temple or court with level floor, 225 feet long and 125 feet broad at its widest part. The ceiling is 60 to 100 feet high. This great natural cathedral is a wonder to geologists, but it is more wonderful to archaeologists. It was evidently used by prehistoric men as a temple of worship or a capital of government. On the walls are paintings in red, white, and black, doubtless having a meaning. There are figures representing fields, suns, forts, spears, men, and animals. The colors are apparently as bright as when laid on. The wonder was discovered by Franciscan missionaries 100 years ago, and there has been no change in its appearance since. When or by whom the walls were decorated, no one knows. The Indian tribes had no tradition concerning the work and regarded it with superstition and reverence. So yeah, just pretty amazing. Rock temple, no idea, no explanation. Even the Indians have no clue. Ancient ruins in California, New York, 1856. Santa Cruz. Santa Cruz. Ancient ruins in California. Alicia Hughes, a resident of Santa Clara, California, writing to the Scientific American under date of May 1856, says he recently had an opportunity of examining some ancient ruins, lately discovered about 6 miles east of Santa Cruz. They were nearly buried up in the sandhill. He also found 23 chimneys with their tops peering above ground. These chimneys are round and vary in diameter from 4 to 12 inches. They are made of sandstone and were filled up with loose red sand. The stones of which they are built are cut circular and cemented together. Stamping on the hill, it emitted a hollow sound, indicating vaulted chambers below. A tunnel is now being run in under the hill. At first, it was attempted to sink a deep shaft, but the sand came in too fast upon the miners. Who built these structures? No one can imagine. They appear to be thousands of years old. A large yellow pine tree was growing on the top of the hill. The number of years required for the sand to cover up these houses and form the hill before the seed of this large tree germinated could not be less than 2,000 years. This takes me back to the one of the Florida episodes I've done where I talked about one of the largest cypress trees in Florida blew over during a hurricane. And below it, they found a giant sandhill. And inside the sandhill, they found a Indian mound. Quote, Indian mound. And it just makes me think of the same thing. The cypress tree was thousands of years old as well. So just imagine, what lies beneath. An American Pompeii, California, 1897. California has a buried city, skeletons and all. Edgar Cox, a miner, has reached Redding, California. After a hard trip, shout out to my NorCal people in here. I kind of I ended my Oregon presentation talking about Southern Oregon and that, 400 feet below lava flow, they found a cave with Chinese writing, Chinese quote hieroglyphics. Chinese is different than it was a few hundred years ago, and they found the same writing all over Mexico. And drawings of boats that clearly looked Viking or Phoenician. So pretty incredible connection there. And we've been talking about the Phoenicians being here in California. They were mining here. The lands of Ophir, right? The Solomon relied on the Phoenicians to help. I think not only provide the masons to lay out the plan, but also provide the minerals and so on and so forth. After a hard trip across the country from Lazen Buttes, 40 miles east of that place, bringing a story of a strange discovery of even deeper interest than the great crater and the springs and caves of the lava fields. The discoveries are of bones and implements denoting a people in a state of civilization existing there many centuries ago. It is believed a second Pompeii may be hidden beneath the lava and igneous rock, which was belched in a far remote period from the mouth of the grim old crater. Now, we talked about Crater Lake in my Oregon video. They estimated the height of that to be bigger than Mount Shasta. So you can imagine what kind of eruptions were going on. The Ring of Fire here on the Pacific coast has done a lot of crazy things. But, Southern Oregon and Northern California, some incredibly rich soil, but also buried in places of over 1,000 feet of lava flow. 1,000 feet of lava flow. Imagine that eruption, you guys. Covering a state, almost a whole state. All of Southern Oregon, you cut the state in half. That whole southern part is lava flow, and a big chunk of Eastern Oregon, and about, I would say, from Eureka up California, the big from where the Nevada state line starts going straight, that whole part of Northern California is buried under lava flow. Some of the best soils in Northern California, and it's igneous lava flow. Where was I? It is believed a second Pompeii has been hidden. The Grim Old Crate. A party of timber surveyors investigating their way over the rough country south of Newell's Pass found within 4 feet of the surface human bones half petrified. They evidently had lain at much greater depth, but erosion had thinned the crust of the earth above them. The skeletons were in various postures as though death had come suddenly upon the ancients, striking them down as they were engaged in the daily routine of life. Next, the searchers came upon rude spoons and bowls. They were apparently of stone, but they bore no resemblance to the Indian relics, which the travelers sees often in that region. Instruments which perhaps were used as hammers and chisels were found. They too were totally unlike the known implements of the Indians. Some of the stone articles were of such design that they could not be classified at all. The surveyors became convinced that they had chanced upon relics of a race that antedated the known Indians so far as to have little in common with them. It was the conviction of the party that the ruins of a settlement or a city possibly engulfed with its inhabitants by an eruption of a long extinct volcano lie beneath the lava and can be reached with comparative ease from certain points where the lava remains. Just like in the Oregon articles where a river had worn a nice channel and they had found a city buried under a lava flow. Now, imagine a huge chunk of Western America, Idaho, Oregon, Washington, Nevada, California, covered cities, covered cities. Like that first article I read, the cities of California lie on top of even far more ancient cities. Well, how is that possible? Well, there's been some incredible events. Okay. Well, I'm not going to have time to get through all these, so let's pick. Okay, we got to do this one. This one's one of my favorites. So we're back to San Diego. Ruins of an ancient Californian city, California, 1867. Antiquaries will feel deeply interested in the discovery of vast regions of ancient ruins near San Diego and within a day's march of the Pacific Ocean at the head of the Gulf of California. Portions of temples, dwellings, lofty stone pyramids, 7 of these within a square mile, and massive granite rings or circular walls, round venerable trees, columns and blocks of hieroglyphics, all speak of some ancient race of men, now far gone, their history actually unknown to any of the existing families of mankind. In some points, these ruins resemble the recently discovered cities of Palenque and near the Atlantic or Mexican Gulf Coast. In others, the ruins of ancient Egypt. In others, again, the monuments of Phoenicia. And yet, in many features, they differ from all that I have referred to. I observe the discoverers deem them to be antediluvian, while the present Indians have a tradition of a great civilized nation, which their ferocious forefathers utterly destroyed. The region of the ruins is called by the Indians the Valley of Mystery. Love that one. You know, you got the Egyptian overlays, the Palenque overlays, and the Phoenicians, right? We were just talking about the Phoenicians. In the 1800s, they're saying, oh, the Phoenicians visited Southern Oregon and they came on land and they, you know, it's just what's lying underneath our feet. It's pretty incredible stuff. I love that one. A submerged prehistoric settlement. The shrinkage of Tulare Lake, California, uncovered a prehistoric settlement, stone buildings, traces of canals once bordered with trees, and other evidences of occupation by an unknown race being clearly defined as the water subsided. This place is flooding, and for the first time, this lake completely disappeared and had been gone for a very long time. And with all the snow that's happening in California, it's actually refilling right now. So funny that I was getting this ready and people were sending me articles about the lake filling back up. But yeah, Antiquities of California, Nevada, 1898. Under this head, the Amador Ledger corroborates a statement that has been going the rounds of the papers in regard to the discovery of some ancient works of masonry on Walker's River. Says the ledger, an old mountaineer who resides near this place was on Walker's River as early as 1837, and some 40 or 50 miles above the forks of that river, he saw an ancient bridge of mason work. It was located about 2 hours ride or 10 miles southeast of where the river then ran. And on a level, sandy plain, he supposes that it once spanned the river having afterwards receded. The, the abutments and possibly some of the arches were entirely covered with sand, but one arch, with a span of not less than 75 or 100 feet, could be seen. The center, or key, was not over 10 or 15 feet from the ground, and the width of the bridge 15 or 20. It was all in a state of perfect preservation. 2 or 3 miles northeast of this bridge, on an elevated piece of ground, he saw the remains of an old fort. The walls were of unhewn limestone and surrounded by a ditch that, from appearances, must have been deep and broad. You got an old star fort here. Near these walls was an old cemetery. Many of the graves were enclosed in cone. This is incredibly important. Many of the graves were enclosed in a cone-shaped tomb. When you look in a cone-shaped tomb, Phoenician, Etruscan. 6 or 8 feet in height. In one of these, he and his companions found a small stone tomahawk, the pole of which had evidently been used as a pipe, the bowl of which was lined with silver. In the same grave, or hookah, they found a number of small nuggets of virgin gold with holes drilled in them, and which they were supposed were brass beads. They little dreamed that they were in a region teeming with gold and silver. Who can say that the hookahs of Walker's River are not as rich in gold as those of the Isthmus of Darien? I want to read a specific one. Let's do the mortars one. Where was that? Okay, so early on in this, I talked about Table Mountain, California. It's called Table Mountain because this odd formation sits on top of another odd formation, and then the bottom has completely eroded. And this is important. I showed a picture of Cherokee City, which is an older city, and it was one of the largest hydraulic mining operations going on in California in the 1850s, 60s, and 70s before it was banned. And they washed away an entire mountain, huge. A California city 180,000 years old. In the current number of the Overland Monthly, a California geologist reviews the geological evidence of the antiquity of a human settlement near the present town of Cherokee in that state, and estimates the age of the most ancient of discovered towns to be not less than 180,000 years. The traces in question are numerous stone mortars, found undisturbed, white and yellow stone gravel of a subaqueous formation, not fluviatile, underlying the vast sheets of volcanic rock of which Table Mountain is a part. In one instance, a mortar was found standing upright with the pestle in it, apparently just as it had been left by its owner. In some cases, the mortars have been found at the depth of 40 feet from the surface of the gravel underlying Table Mountain. The distribution of the mortars is such as to indicate with great positiveness the former existence of a human settlement on that ancient beach when the waters stood near the level at which they occur, a time anterior to the volcanic outpouring which Table Mountain records. So the formation again is what they're talking about, how Table Mountain, this whole formation here was added on top of bedrock, and that below this formation was a town and a settlement. That's why they stopped. They didn't go any farther here into this rock here. And that a city lies underneath this whole mountain here. And that this was a beach or the beach of a river. And yeah, 40 feet below. Now, like I was saying with the hydraulic mining, they were revealing stuff like this all over. We covered Comstock, we covered Calaveras County, where they were washing out gigantic giants, giant horses, spurs of giants, saddles on the back of giant horses. And then we'll go to this one because it ties in. Prehistoric remains in California. A piece of oak fossilized, which had evidently, when in condition of wood, been artificially cut with square edges to shape some 20 inches long by 14 wide and 5 deep, has recently been found in the South Fork Tunnel near Forest City, Sierra County. 1,000 800 feet from the mouth of the tunnel. So they're digging into a mountain. Excuse me. They're digging into the mountain to build a tunnel, and 1,800 feet from the mouth, they find this artifact carved by the hands of man with 800 vertical feet of mountain above it. So they're 1,800 feet into the mountain, and they're 800 feet from the top of the mountain, and they're finding things carved by man. Okay, this is what I'm saying about the entire state. A huge portion of California is buried under hundreds and hundreds of feet of lava flow and mud. This relic of human artifice in the prehistoric period was found in what was the west bank of the great river which ran across the present courses of the Sierra River system. How many thousands of centuries have passed since it was shaped, and for how many it has lain undisturbed in its deeply covered grave is a suggestive subject of study and conjecture. Other discoveries indicating the existence of man in very remote ages have been made in various sections of this old river course, and in 1858, a number of fossilized pine logs, 7 feet long, 4 in diameter, that had been neatly sawed and piled up together were found in the Allegheny Tunnel under the bed of the Old Blue River. So, again, another tunnel, and they're finding a stack of fossilized pine logs, 7 feet long, 4 feet in diameter, neatly sawed and piled up, and then covered by, you know, hundreds, if not 1,000 feet of earth under the bed of the Old Blue River. The recently found relic has been forwarded to State University. just incredible. I hope you guys are enjoying this as much as me. And again, this is such a small fragment of my California articles, but I wanted to stick with the what lies beneath kind of concepts and just show you that, similar to the Seattle narrative where they were washing away millions and millions and millions of cubic feet of earth and the things they were finding, so too here in California. So I'm going to end with this one right here. Paved by the Ancients, Kansas, 1895. Discovery of a remarkable prehistoric road in California. Some weeks ago, a local newspaper reported interesting discoveries made on the north slope of San Miguel Mountain by Herman C. Cook and C.A. Favell, two mining prospectors. The discoveries comprising a prehistoric stone roadway, a number of mining tools, and unmistakable traces of an ancient mining camp. The age of the roadway was indicated by the growth upon it of large trees. What were believed to be the dumps of one or perhaps two mines were also found, and chunks of ore which carried gold and silver were picked up there. The prospectors have been very reserved in speaking of their discoveries. They arrived here a few days ago, however, and it was leaked out that it was of much greater interest than at first supposed. The stone-paved road was traced to a wall of solid and well-executed masonry. This was found to surround an enclosure now filled with debris, but which is believed to be an old astra, which I believe is like a furnace or it's something used in mining, I believe, for breaking down the metals. A portion of the floor is there, and fragments of the crushing of stones were found. Near the arastra was discovered the mouth of a tunnel filled with debris. This is now believed cleaned out. A keystone surmounted the arch at the entrance, and the walls are well defined, though some have been disintegrated. In the vicinity are also traceable the foundations of no less than 19 small houses and a flat stone bearing an inscription which has not been deciphered. It's thought that the marked location of the tunnels and the pushing of the investigation into the mountain will lead to more interesting discoveries than any yet made bearing on the life of ancient man in this region. So again, like kind of continuing with our four-part here series here, or at least episode 4 here. We're all standing on the shoulders of giants. There are countless civilizations lying below our feet, and all major cities seem to be built on top of a previous city. How many, I have no idea. But our past is rich and magical, and instead of looking through the lens of the controlled concepts given to us at school, I would say just pick up a Tolkien book, and you're probably a lot closer to what's been going on. So, 150 people here, man, what a blessing. I'm so happy that so many of you are willing to be here this early in the morning, and it means a lot to me. And thank you so much for your patience. It's been a long delay. I haven't really done anything for a few weeks, and it means a lot to me. So I'm probably going to put a poll up. So look for that poll on YouTube. I think I'm going to let you guys choose which episode's next. It's either going to be Utah, Nevada, or Arizona. So whatever you guys choose is where I'm going to go next. And so yeah, I might do a part two, but that'll be farther down the road just to keep the series moving along because I have a lot I didn't touch on. I wanted to get into Queen Calafia. I wanted to get into King Solomon in America. Um, yeah, there's just so many directions we could go with that. Um, check out check out Karimo's work. His Queen Calafia video is fantastic, me and him always cross paths, and he covers a lot of work that I've covered or that I've done on my own research and verified a lot of things that I thought. And the concept of the Amazons, this warrior race of women, um, you know, I strongly believe that a big historical part of that took place here in California. And so, yeah, maybe through feedback and comments in the channel, um, you guys can help me kind of steer. If you want me to go back over some things and talk about kind of more of the mystical parts of California, I can do that. But yeah, stay tuned for a poll so you guys can vote on what state we do next. And I appreciate you all so much for being here. Thank you for being up early. And we'll just kind of read through some comments in chat here. And yeah. So I'm just going to scroll up here. I apologize again for not participating so much in chat. That's kind of one of the bonuses of doing a live show, but I have so much I wanted to get through and didn't even finish my material as usual. Everything comes down to the tree. I watched the most incredible documentary movie called Octopus Volcano, all about the species of octopus that evolved to thrive. That's crazy. Jillian, thanks for being here. Have you seen any of Dutch Sense's findings? I reached out to Dutch Sense and I haven't heard back. I corroborate a lot of what he's been talking about. I posted most of the Missouri and St. Louis stuff years and years ago. So if he would just follow me, he would be a lot farther along. I'd love to get together and talk with him. So if someone, if you guys want to tell him to reach out or respond, that'd be fantastic. Just based on this live, you have more than enough evidence. Johnny Quest, thanks for being here again. Appreciate you. Cali is like 3 or 4 reg dude states. Okay. Regular size states. Yeah, there's tons and tons of history here. I'm touching on a tiny, tiny fragment. Obsidian volcanic glass definitely come from trees. Yep, obsidian, I believe, comes from trees. Glad to see you fighting. Thanks, Brian. Thanks for being here. Thank you all. Means a lot. Appreciate you all. I'm grateful for you. Thanks again, guys. I'm going to call it a day there. Yeah, and if you don't have Twitter, no big deal. You can still go on Twitter and just search _analog_9, and you can find my posts there. I've taken a long break from technology, taking care of the family for a few weeks, so there's not a lot there, but you can find my California thread. I'll have that posted in the description. My California thread, as you can see here, is very long. And this is a tiny, tiny fraction. You can find all my old maps that I made a thread for. You can find all of my Pacific exposition threads I made, just old artwork. And then I start in with my articles. And this is only a tenth of my California articles, but I just chose my favorites. Then I wanted to build the narrative of what lies beneath, what's hidden under our feet. Again, love you all. Thanks for being here. Feel really, really good about, coming back. And my first full month with YouTube was incredible. And it really, I know it can be a success, and it's all because of you guys. So I'm going to be starting a book series. I'm going to probably break it up into different books. But I think this book right here, Feeling is the Secret, will be one of my first books. I know we talked about um, um, Julian Jaynes and the breakdown of the bike hero mind, forming a consciousness. That book is huge. That'll still be a series I work on, but I kind of want to do shorter bursts and little books that I can cover in 1 to 2 hour segments. And after each chapter, I'll give my thoughts and opinions and reiterate things I think that are important. Um, just things that kind of changed my life, and share with you guys. These are kind of, again, sticking to the late 1800s to early 1900s. All these authors I'm showing you are from that time frame. Here's another fantastic book. So yeah, I'll be putting a poll up probably too, so you guys can choose what books we cover. So I'll be starting my book series this week for sure. Um, yeah, so stay tuned, and thank you everyone for being here. I love you guys so much, and have a wonderful day. And thanks for getting up early and tuning in with me. And yeah, so I appreciate your feedback. Leave a comment and anything you have suggestion wise, things in the state, things in Arizona, Nevada, Utah, whatever. I'll post a poll today, and we'll go from there. So thank you all so much. Have a great day.